Travis Kelce was having trouble having a 3-12 record, and under postseason pressure when Taylor Swift suffered a breakdown in her production. That same evening, resulting in their initial actual battle at home. However, what actually occurred would be revealed once they both burst. The reality of what it truly takes to adore someone who is in the spotlight. January 2025 at 9:47 p.m. The door to the Leawood house of Travis and Taylor struck with a ferocity that shook the costly crystal chandelier in the foyer. Kelce, Travis bounded through his Chiefs practice equipment at the entrance wet with perspiration and annoyance. His muddy footprints made by the cleats on the immaculate hardwood flooring that the morning had been spent by the housekeeper polishing. He whispered, "Shit," beneath his exhaling, letting his duffel bag fall with a booming thud that reverberated throughout the cavernous entrance. The noise reverberated from the walls like a charge, a reminder of how silent and desolate the felt like a house while you were carrying the weight of the aspirations of a whole city on your shoulders. There were 3 Chiefs to 2. What are 3 victories and 12 defeats? Was intended to be their title season. Travis's yards of receiving were 40% less than the previous year. His touchdown. The number of catches has decreased from 12 to 4, and every Kansas City sports commentator he was being called washed up to New York and preoccupied with his famed girlfriend. The headlines have been cruel during the week. Is Taylor Swift causing chaos? The career of Travis Kelce? Chiefs are close and pop stars are more important than the playoffs. Kelce's output declines as the relationship intensifies. However, the criticism from the media wasn't a factor. The worst thing was that Travis was beginning to question whether they were correct. The same as Travis removed his cleats. Heat tempting to determine how to explain to Coach Reid's Taylor was essentially put him on the bench for the second half of the entrance door exploded open during practice. Once more, with even more vigor. Swift Taylor as she staggered through the door, her typically flawless golden hair that is knotted mess. Her high-end jacket was rumpled and discolored by what appeared to be coffee, and she juggled her with trembling hands. Phone, her bag for her laptop, and a pile of documents that threatened to leak across the floor. God, she leaned on the door and inhaled as it shut behind her. God, this day not possible. Travis raised his head from removing his second cleat, observing the unkempt appearance of Taylor. He would have never seen her look that frantic, even on the busiest evenings of the tour of the IRS. She had messed her mascara beneath her eyes, implying that she was crying and wearing the same garments she had on the morning before, which implied that she had most likely slept in her office once more. "Hey, babe," said Travis. His voice softens on its own, notwithstanding his own awful state of mind. "Hard." "At the studio today," Taylor exclaimed. That sounded more like a sob than a laugh. "Rough doesn't even say, 'Rough day, Travis. Start discussing the events of today.'" She put her luggage down and right away began to pace the hallway, her heels tapping the hardwood floor in the hectic beat that made Travis's nerves that are already frazzled feel even more on edge. The full lighting setup for the tour's European leg is incorrect. False. $2 million in 3 months of planning and machinery, and they constructed everything to incorrect specs. The venues are not suitable for panels. The rigging unable to bear the weight. And we've our first performance in 6 weeks in London. Taylor was raising the volume of her voice, and with every phrase, the tension increased. Additionally, that's not even the worst part. The worst aspect, does that sound like my production manager? Reportedly collaborated with for 5 years. Neglected to submit the permissions for the pyrotechnics over 4 nations. Travis, for nations. I must now decide between a total overhaul or the performance, or possibly postponing the dates in 30 seconds that sold out. Travis observed Taylor walking, sensing his own frustration increasing. The worst had happened to him. Practice of his occupation. His teammates were beginning to doubt him, and his coaches were wondering if he could continue to give outstanding performances. The last thing he felt like doing was hearing Taylor worry about her tour logistics. "All right, but you'll work it out." "Out," Travis murmured, his tone revealing more contemptuous than he had meant. "Usually do? You have such individuals working on these things?" Taylor halted, paced while gazing at Travis as if he slapped her. "I'll figure it out," she replied, repeated in a dangerously low voice. "Travis, this isn't a small matter. Inconvenience. This might ruin the whole tour of Europe. Do you know what that means?" Travis thought he felt something crack within of him. He'd been enduring the interrogation from Coach Ish's dedication, teammates' remarks regarding his diversions, and reporters questioned whether he was more concentrated on his girlfriend instead of his job. And he was now expected to return home and offer tour participants emotional assistance, issues with output. In fact, Taylor, I'm not sure what that means, Travis remarked. His voice was growing louder. Because I've never enjoyed the privilege of individuals whose responsibility it is to address my issues. I don't have to take the blame when I make a mistake, incorrect production manager or file, permit. When I miss a block or drop a pass, I'm responsible for that. Only me. The eyes of Taylor expanded, allowing Travis to view her, changing in real life from stressed to anger time. Luxury, she replied, raising her voice to correspond with his. You believe that having people rely on you to make a living is a opulence? You believe that taking accountability for letting down hundreds of thousands of admirers who saved all of their money for our tickets considered a luxury? Travis got to his feet. From the seat he had been occupying, he towered over Taylor with his 6.5 frame in a manner that made the dispute seem far more intense. I believe that having choices is a luxury, Travis retorted. I believe having the ability to postpone shows and date rescheduling is a privilege. You are aware, Taylor, what am I incapable of? I am unable to postpone the playoff game on Sunday due to I'm not feeling well this week. I am unable to cancel practice since my tools aren't working. I must appear and I must execute. Additionally, if I fail, my whole squad suffers. And this is where things went wrong, really unsightly, since they were both ready to utter things they had never said before that previously. Oh, Taylor, please uttered, her tone brimming with irony. Your team as a whole suffers. Travis, your 11 other players are on the field with the team at any moment. If you're in a bad game, let someone else take over. If I go home 80,000 folks and have a miserable night disappointed, and social media is rife with it media in a matter of minutes. Travis sensed his face heating up with rage. You'd want to, Taylor, do you talk about pressure? Let's have a conversation regarding pressure. There are men on my team. Someone has 15 years of football experience years. Men with mortgages and families, and young people are attempting to submit a college. Additionally, they are currently losing games because my playing isn't good enough, since I seem to be too preoccupied with my famous girlfriend to concentrate on my work. The phrases lingered in the space between like a poisonous haze. Travis noticed Taylor's face turns white and then red, something that nearly resembled anger. Two are preoccupied with your superstar. Taylor repeated, girlfriend, in her voice returning to a dangerously silent state. Is that silent state? Is that, what do you think? Do you tell that? When they inquire as to why you're not doing well, Travis became aware that he'd went too far, but he was too furious and too exhausted to give up. I'm not telling anyone anything, Taylor. However, perhaps, just possibly, it's difficult to concentrate. On football, in every discussion I have becomes a conversation about the tour, issues with production, or the release of an album itineraries, or the award show that we are attending going to next. Taylor gazed at Travis for a considerable amount of time, and he could see her thinking about what he just said. When she talked once more, although her tone was somewhat icy, it was a new sound to him. You know what, Travis? You're correct. You are not by me, but preoccupied. You're preoccupied with attempting to be someone you believe I desire rather than merely being the, I fell in love with this individual. You're so concerned about being deserving of Taylor Swift. You've lost your ability to be Travis Kelce. Travis was slammed by the accusation like a linebacker approaching from behind because he knew in his heart that she was correct. And that understanding made him more irate. Don't, Travis said, indicating Taylor with a finger. Avoid turning this on me. Avoid making this about when you're the one. My fears losing their mind over lighting rigs as well as licenses. You're curious about what does pressure look like? The pressure is having. According to Andy Reid, you could be sitting on the sidelines during the playoffs because you're unable to focus on the game. Taylor's jaw fell agape. Andy, that's what Reid said. Indeed, Andy Reid stated that. Travis went on, his voice growing louder still. Coach Reid, who's been to me for 6 years as a father figure, separated from me today and informed me that I've changed as a player from before. Season. I seem distracted, he said, lacking concentration, as my priorities are elsewhere. And what do you know? He might be correct. Travis noticed Taylor's face break, but he had already gone too far to put an end to it. Perhaps that's where my priorities lie, otherwise. perhaps it's not possible to provide everything I need to play football while I'm always concerned about if your content. Regardless of whether I'm helping you sufficient, if I'm performing well enough boyfriend to a person who actually has everything. At that moment, Taylor said something that would completely alter the course of their battle. Everything. Taylor's tone was little higher than a whisper, but Travis's voice was cut through, rage like a blade. You believe that I have all of it? Travis hesitated, perplexed by the abrupt change in her voice. Travis, please. You're curious about what I did earlier today. The conference for lighting? I spent 3 hours in a meeting room with 12 executives outlining the reasons I had to take a break for your mental health in between. Tours.legs. 3 hours defending my need for 4 weeks off throughout the following 8 months. For within 8 months, Travis felt he was losing some of his rage, but Taylor wasn't completed. And you know what? Did they tell me? I was informed that the projected cost of the tour would be weeks. Loss of $42 million in sales. They displayed graphs and charts to me, demonstrating the amount of money I would cost not only my label, but also the locations, the suppliers, and the regional economies of the cities where my performance was scheduled. Now Taylor's voice trembled, but not with fatigue, with rage. Thus, I sat listening to adult males in the room tell me why my mental well-being was less significant than their earnings margins. When I returned home, I found that the European lighting tour is entirely incorrect, which implies I'll most likely have to work 18 hours a day to address it during the next 6 weeks. Travis felt as though he had been struck in the stomach. I had no idea, Taylor. You didn't know since I keep it a secret. Taylor cut me off. I keep it from you. Regarding my previous episodes of Panic Attacks each show, I save the details of the nights when I'm unable to sleep due to afraid of disappointing others. I don't mention the constant pressure to be thankful, to be flawless. You never gripe about living a life that millions would sacrifice their lives for. Taylor took a deep seat on the bottom, her head in her mouth as she stepped down their stairway hands. Additionally, I keep it a secret since I recognize that you are under strain. I see how much you care and how hard you work, how terrible it is about your team when you think you're allowing others to down. I so attempt to manage my belongings on my own to relieve you of the burden of worrying about me as well. The battle had gone absolutely flat. Travis glanced to Taylor, who was seated on the steps, appearing more compact, and she was more exposed than he had ever seen her, and discovered that both of them had been carrying heavy loads without allowing the assistance from another person. Travis approached and took a seat beside Taylor on the steps that are sufficiently near to their shoulders were heartwarming. I was unaware that you were experiencing panic attacks, he muttered. I was unaware that Coach Reed was thinking of benching you. Taylor leaning against Travis's shoulder, I responded. For a while, they sat silently, both analyzing their recent altercation and the facts they just made public. Taylor finally, Travis murmured, I'm sorry. Okay, I mentioned that you were distracting me. I wasn't having any difficulties, due to you. I'm having trouble because I placed a great deal of pressure on myself to be a deal for you that I can't remember how to. Simply play football. Taylor raised her up head and turned to face Travis. I apologize as well for ignoring your pressure. Here I have choices that you don't possess. If I make a mistake, I can generally rectify it. When a pass is dropped in, the playoffs are over. That is not the same. A certain amount of pressure, and I should have reduced it. However, this is what transpired. Afterward, that would fundamentally alter how they managed stress in their connection. Travis grasped Taylor's hand and gave it a light squeeze. Could I tell you? Something that will sound insane? Taylor gave a nod. I believe that we are both so fearful of burdening one another that we're not allowing one another to assist us. Such as, you're experiencing panic assaults on their own since you're unwilling to increase my level of stress. And I'm coping with just performance anxiety because I do not want you to believe that you are interlude. Taylor was silent for a moment, considering what Travis possessed simply said. So both of us are defending, separate ourselves from one another, she stated, slowly. Indeed, and it's creating worsening circumstances. Taylor looked at Travis in a more straightforward manner. What if we made an attempt? Something else, such as, similar to being forthright about the difficulties, even when we believe the other individual cannot manage it, such as allowing one another assist in bearing the burden, rather than attempting to bear it alone. Travis gave a nod. That would be nice, but may I ask you something? Anything. The episodes of panic prior to performances. How much time has that been? taking place? Taylor was silent for a while. Moment. A year or so after the trip got so large that I began to feel as though I couldn't merely be an individual who happens to be good at music. As if I had to be Taylor Swift at all times. Travis, his heart tightened. Additionally, you've been enduring that alone the entire time. I've got a therapist, Taylor blurted out. I've also discussed it with my mother. However, I was reluctant to inform you because I feared you would notice me in a different way. Like perhaps you fell in love with the self-assured, prosperous Taylor Swift. And if you were aware of how terrified and feeling overburdened, you might not want to be with Taylor, who is a typical worried person. Travis turned to look directly at Taylor, taking both his and her hands. Listen to me, Taylor. It wasn't Taylor Swift that captured my heart. The brand. The woman captivated me, who cries during dog adoption advertisements, creates awful puns, and converses with her sourdough starter as though it were a pet. The reason I fell in love with you was, it's not because you're flawless that you're real. Taylor's eyes flooded with tears. Really, really? And what do you know? If you're experiencing panic attacks, please let me know concerning them. I don't want to fix them, but to allow me to hold your hand as you get through them. Taylor gave Travis a chance. Additionally, I'd like to know when you're having trouble with football. Not in order for me to provide you guidance on a matter that I know, but you don't have to. Keep the disappointment to yourself. They took a seat, spending a couple more minutes on the stairs, simply holding hands and analyzing they just had a talk. Travis at last, Taylor answered, yes, I do have a show in 3 days. And I'm afraid that going to go horribly wrong due to everything the issues with production. Travis grinned, gently. And I have a playoff game on Sunday. And I'm afraid that I'll failed my team one more. Not going to be, are you scared too? Taylor asked. Yes, Travis murmured, planting a kiss atop her head. That would be nice. After 3 months, when sports reporters would question Travis regarding how he improved his season and guided the Chiefs to yet another championship game, triumph, he would use a phrase that most of them were perplexed. I discovered that possessing the strength necessary to win titles does not imply having too much strength to require assist. And when reporters covering music inquired Taylor's methods for executing the technically challenging portion of the tour of the era in spite of all the output obstacles, she would utter, similarly perplexing. I discovered that being enough that stadiums are sold out does not imply having too much success to be, occasionally, I get terrified. However, the actual reality, the one that they kept private was, it's easier than that. They discovered that protecting someone is not the same as loving them out of your troubles. It indicates having enough faith in them to allow them to assist you have them on you. What are your thoughts? This unvarnished look at how two extremely people that are successful manage stress and tension in their partnership. Have you ever feared becoming a burden? That you ultimately shoved someone away rather than allowing them to assist? Give your ideas in the comments section below. Due to occasionally, the most crucial relationship skills include knowing when to give up being strong and begin being sincere. And here's something that interests me, roughly. What do you think about this battle? Altered Travis and Taylor's help one another through their most times of stress? What additional pressures do you believe the public faces that never notices? Tell me in the comments below, since true love isn't about possessing an ideal partnership. It concerns battling fairly and reconciling. If this tale got you to consider the significance of vulnerability in connections, be sure to hit that for more. Click the like button and subscribe. Unspoken accounts of how celebrities manage the actual difficulties of love under pressure. Because occasionally after the largest moments, there are wonderful ones. Fights. Wonderful ones. Fights.